bit about your beautiful exhibition that is there, isn't it, at the moment?
Yes, which is the exhibit now. It's it's virtual. It doesn't exist. The canons, because the exhibit I was doing it, which I call Within the Smells of History.
Yeah.
They are I've used 20 canons from the collection of the National Museum of History in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
And to insert the smell inside their mouth.
Of the canons, yeah.
Of the canons, yes.
And what is the exhibition about? Like, what was the reason for choosing the canons?
Well, there are many reasons. I think would it be interesting to, before talking about this, to just go back in time and talk very briefly about two installations that were very basic to the work today.
Yeah.
One was in 1981, 82, which I call Smell of Fish. And the other one was in 91, which I call It's Still Time to Mourn.
Yeah.
The Smell of Fish had no smell, only the memory. The memory of my grandmother saying, when I was very young, that I had to take a bath. Otherwise, I would smell of codfish.
Yeah.
There was a very clear for me the prejudices that exist in many cultures against women's desire. And I made it a banquet of poetry, performance, silk screen, sculpture, and the memory of the smell of fish. And the opening, I served codfish cakes.
So that was the only smell, was the cakes?
Right, at the openings.
Yeah.
Which was then eating.
And was this a bad memory of your grandmother?
Well, the memory was there in poetry, in the silk screen images of women's body, women's genitalia, and the pleasure of being together with our own bodies.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, when the US invaded Baghdad, I had a series of installations. That was in 1991, January 17, 1991. I'll never forget this day. And what I worked was several tents made up of camouflage netting material used in the war. First, they were used in the War of Vietnam. And then a year later, because I worked a few years with this, a year later was used already with the desert. So in these memorial texts, the public would enter and they would sit around a Orthodox Jewish coffin as a light box.
Mm-hmm.
And the images inside of the coffin were silk screen. They were the images that we saw online through the television. Because at that war was constantly those
images?
Almost, there was very little images of pain at that war. They didn't show us. So I had that silk screen in the coffin. And as you sat around this camouflage netting material that was in the war, because I bought a used one in military old artifacts. They had the smell of death.
It was there. It was in the smell was present in the.
Well, for me, smell is very conceptual.
Yeah.
It's poetry. Smell. I am not a maker of smells.
No.
I make it, but my main reason to be with smells is because it is a retrieval of memories and emotions.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm interested in creating nests, shelters where these smells can be. And they have, or even contexts, because they exist within these spaces that my imagination sees.
And with your work, so we had these two earlier works, and now there is the works with the canons. You said
yes.
that it is very differently because the new installation with the canons was for the first time that you use a male perspective compared to a female perspective.
Right, because the woman has always been the protagonist of my work.
Yeah.
She's always present there.
Mm-hmm.
And the male figure have been on the outskirts.
Yeah.
But now I took them, I kind of brought it, this male presence as the main actor of
Mm-hmm.
this amount of canons.
And how does it feel to use all of a sudden a male character, to become a kind of a male in smell?
Well, my first question when I accept the invitation to do an exhibit at the museum, and I chose to do at the Garden of Canons, I asked myself, how can I bring here the female sensibility in the middle of those giant pinners and these giant metaphors of military power, sexual power, economic power, and how this female sensibility can penetrate into these big mouths.
Yes.
Into these big cannons. Yeah. And find the smells of history that have been forgotten inside the walls, the iron walls of these cannons. But it's very beautiful to say that inside of these cannons, there is a soul. And I think the soul is the smell. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, bring this colonization period into today, into our political situation. So at the same time that when the colonizers came to Brazil in the 1500s and they committed genocide with the indigenous community, or the indigenous people of Brazil, yeah. They are still doing today. Mm-hmm. COVID is taking an enormous amount of indigenous people, and they are dying like flies, and the government is doing anything. And at the same time, the government, as we all know, and the world is amazed by that, allowing that the Amazon forest and all the indigenous territories that have been demarcated today, mm-hmm. that can be explored, can be mined, can have cattle, mm-hmm. and let's absorb them. Exactly what happened in the 1700s, 1800s, when the Portuguese, through Pombal, to the minister Pombal, that he was trying to absorb the indigenous.
And
So,
do you think,
don't keep your culture. We don't want differences. We want everybody the same.
We are now going back to this period where they were using the cannons?
Yes, but now we have a more powerful, damn little microorganism that enters in our body,
yes,
and goes straight to our nose. And as the first symptom, make us lose the sense of smell, the sense that really deals with our emotions, with our affections. And at the same time, we are alone in isolation,
yes.
and missing affection.
You had it. You had COVID-19.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I had it in March, and was at that time nobody was talking that was a symptom of COVID. But right after, I had the other symptoms, and then I understood that I was making the smells for this installation that had to do with COVID. I was making the smell of fear, of invasion, of delirium, anoxia, death, affection, the ocean and the rainforest, and even how the smell of death was made. I think this is another thing we didn't speak about.
Now we still need to speak about it, because people get in these packages with two smells in there.
Right, and they are getting with the XNO, which I think it's interesting, because this is how he said that XNO is the first, that fresh green smell is the first smell that comes out when someone dies.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like that. I didn't think I wanted, in the smell of history, to have
why not?
it.
Why not?
Why not? I felt that the people that would die, first in the cannon, provoked by the cannons, they would die in wars, in fields, battlefields. They were in the mud. They were dirty with mud. They were. They wouldn't take baths. They wouldn't change the clothing for a long time. So the smell was different. Could not be fresh green. No. Sorry, no. And what's happening with our history today, it's also very smelly and foul history in many of the countries.
Then? What's so smelly?
The history, our present political situation.
Why is that smelly?
Because it smells, it's horrible. It's a foul smell. Foul in English? Yeah. I think so, foul. Yeah, it's a foul smell.
Is it literally a foul smell, or is it the translation from you of the?
It's everything is my own translation.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. I can imagine. I speak very clearly. Yeah. I kind of.
Yeah. And the other ingredient, the indole.
Yes, the indole. Yes, I did put it indole, because that was able to create a smell of feces, and which is, I think it was important, because it comes together with fear before that. And I also wanted to use it, lilies, which I love it. And it's a very indolic, animalic, and yet I think it's a beautiful metaphor. We cannot take the essence of the lilies, so I could not put it in. So I mean, as working with this smell, they had to relate it somewhat to how I sense it what the history of these canons. Well, one of the things I haven't said, but I should say it, and I would like to. I mean, I have done these smells with Leandro Petit of Givaudan do Brazil, and Givaudan is supporting my work since 2009, 2010, and
Yes.
I'm very grateful.
Because your canons, are they closed? Can people smell them?
No. I haven't, because the exhibit was postponed 20 days before its opening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it gave me what was interesting is that I was able, with the time now of the pandemic, to rewrite all this history and bring it in. Whatever we are feeling in our isolation, and put it in on the internet. So it exists now in my site, and I'm putting slowly all the smells and asking people to interact. I think smell is poetry, and smell is meditation.
Yes.
We need to meditate, and this is the irony at this moment, that we need to meditate, and yet we cannot smell.
And does it also have a good? Is there something good at the COVID? Does it bring something good?
Oh yes, I mean, I took COVID in my body, and I became very good friends with COVID.
Yeah.
We worked together in making my work.
Yeah.
I didn't fight the COVID. Then he got tired of me and he left. I think there is a lot of things good. I think we have moments of quietness. We have feelings. We have because the whole pandemic is very unsure, and the only certainty is the uncertainty. So at the same time, our feelings, they go up and they go down. We feel a lot of grief. I think there is a sense of loss beyond the loss of smell. There is a sense of loss that we are dealing with and we are living with. So we cry. And I think we are allowed to cry.